Welcome to Adults Only Comedy Berlin. Today we have Dave Adams.
Hello.
Hello.
Do I introduce myself?
If you want, yeah, do that.
Hello, Anno Barros. I am Dave Adams, and I want to say thank you very much for having me. This is lovely. You have a nice apartment.
Thank you. I'm going to lose it, but
Yeah, I mean, all things must pass.
all things, I've had a good 2.5 years here. And I do not want to get into talking about share house dynamics, but I'm about to set myself onto a new path, and I'm excited about it.
Do you know what? Because we spoke a little bit about house politics before, and it reminds me of living in Australia.
Yeah.
Do you know, it was so nice to hear an Aussie person talking about roommates and stuff. I'm like, it's been such a long time, and that used to be such a common thing for me. Do you know, people would be having just different things and,
Yeah. I feel like for the last few years, I've only lived with one other person, usually. I usually only do a 2-person share house.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. But this one was cool. It was a community of women, we're part of a collective for regional food.
It sounds awful. Go on.
Look, it is riddled with political dynamics and, but I liked the sentiment, and the kind of motivation behind it, and we were all living together with this very clear desire to work in a community, to figure out how to live as a community and support each other. And it's no longer working, but we tried.
Yeah, you gave it a red hot go.
I really did. And I think now it's time for me. I'd be happy to live with one other person again. Otherwise, I'm going to be looking for my own place.
You should live with a man.
I love living with men.
Yeah.
For a long time, I said I would only live with men because with a man, and it's this classic kind of stereotype, but it's like, hey, man, clean that shit up, and they'll be like, oh yeah, and then same goes the other way. It's like, Anna, clean up your tampons, and I'll be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's true, man.
It's so much easier. And I was thinking about this when I said it last night in a conversation regarding my share house. I was like, I have lived with dudes in the past, and I find it easier because when you bring up a problem with a woman, you have to be so much more considerate of all of what you could trigger in them, because I think it actually comes down to women being more damaged. Just generally, it's not like we're victims, but I think women carry around all of this baggage, and they expect other women to see that and to be sensitive.
Yeah.
And it's like, too much time.
Yeah.
Maybe? I don't know.
That's an interesting theory. I think women probably are more damaged. I think because it's definitely a harder road.
Right.
I mean, having said that, there's a lot of very damaged men.
There are.
But a lot of times that's just self-inflicted.
Maybe.
Know?
Well, society fucks everyone up, right? But I guess men already have a clearer path in feeling like they can take up space, or they can, they can be assertive or just direct in their communication. Whereas when a woman does that, and I have recently been labeled accordingly, scary and bossy because of my direct communication skills.
You're not scary.
I'm too nice. I listen.
No, wait.
Look, I have been called scary before, for sure. But it's like when I challenged this comment, I was like, is there something that I said or did? The response was, oh no, it's nothing that you've said or you've done. It's just how you carry yourself, the way you hold the space.
Mm-hmm. That's a terrible. I hate when people use an argument like that, because what they're saying is, oh, I can't think of a specific example, or I can't back up this argument in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to say something so vague that you can't respond to. Exactly. It's just a general feeling.
It's just a general feeling that they don't like me. They don't like me.
Yeah, that's when it's unrepairable. All right, so it's a general thing. So it's not anything specific I'm doing. If it was, we can talk about what I'm doing. That's behavior. We can talk about and fix behavior and come to compromises. But when they say it's just, I just generally don't like you. It's like, it's over,
It's so over.
Yeah.
It's rotting. It needs to go.
Yeah.
So
I had an argument with a friend recently. It's the first time I've really argued with a friend in a really long time.
Well, lockdown, hey?
Exactly. And also a fellow comedian too. So it's we're in the same boat of like miserableness. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Frustrated. Frustrated.
But it was in a group message as well. So there's a bunch of other people, and like, so it was like probably the first time we've performed in a very long time.
That's great.
But then he said something too mean, and then too mean about just me as a person. And just like you, it's like. It's not like I did something specifically. It's just like, no, I just don't like you as a person. And I'm like, oh, well, I can't help you with that.
Yeah, no. And that's, we've crossed a line now.
Yeah, that's how it feels. Yeah. But I think that's a good thing because I think new friends are the best friends.
That's kind of how I live my life.
Yeah. Like, but then your old friends, like your true old friends that stand the test of time, like they are ultimately the best friends.
Yes.
But friends that you've had for like 2 or 3 or 4 years, not all of them are going to make it.
No, they're not.
And that's okay.
It is okay. And in fact, having these rifts or, these moments of conflict come up, it really shows you the true nature of the relationship and how they value it or how you value it. And then you can make the decision. And I think as much as it hurts, it's like, well, good riddance, good that I see that now because had we, continued along, blah, blah, blah. It's like, of course, let's get it over and done with. I'm going to cut this. Yeah, I'm going to move on.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, I like the handshake goodbye, with friends, like, hey, this isn't going to work. Just like a nice breakup, if you can ever do a breakup nicely.
Yeah.
Which is really hard to do.
It's really hard. And often like sharing a living space is really hard as well. Like at least in a work environment, it's like there's a contract that protects everybody. And that's for, there's a good reason why we have work contracts and exit conditions and things like that. But in a share house, it can go really sour. And I had that happen. I've only had that happen really twice in my life, once in Berlin and once in Melbourne, where stuff really got out of hand.
Yeah.
And they can go really out of hand.
Yeah.
So I've learned from the past there, but it's like also there's some people just start behaving very badly. And and I feel like all of these signs that I'm experiencing now, it's like, it's that whole thing. I'm seeing it now. So, cut this out and remove, like, let go of anything that's not serving you and anything that's draining your energy. So because you lived in Melbourne, didn't you? Yeah. So like, the share house life is like people are always coming and going so frequently. So there's never really like a huge audition process to see, do we get along that well or not? Like people are just thrown into houses together and just live with each other randomly. Do you know what I mean? Like happens all the time, And it's exciting.
I had a guy, in one of my first share houses, like when I was like 19 or something, literally my first share house. And it's, not in Melbourne, in Geelong, so more of a coastal town, and 3 high school friends, let's say, and we found this house, like we couldn't believe it was 2 acres. It was like this huge, like 4-bedroom house, and we all paid like $300 a month or something like that between the 3 of us. It was so cheap, but we just had all this space because it was just kind of in a shitty area, And I had this one, high school friend that, it got to a point where I had a bit of money at the time and he was broke. And so I lent him like a lot of money or just like sort of buy him things. And I sort of like, it kind of got up to $1,000-ish, you know what I mean? Which is always uncomfortable when a friend owes you more than a couple of $100. Once it's $1,000, it's like, all right, it's going to be very hard to be friends.
Yes.
Unless you like deal with this, And so then he got a job, and he was like working. I'm like, okay, cool. Still waiting for the money, nothing. And then he came home with like, and this is like, over 10 years ago, he came home with the new iPhone.
Oh la la.
And I was like, you've ruined our friendship forever. You have. Do you know what I mean? Like I can't figure out how you think you can buy yourself the new iPhone. I had the tiny little flip phone that only worked if you plugged it into the wall. I couldn't afford the iPhone.
Well, you couldn't with that $1,000 sitting in your friends.
Yeah, I know, man. So it's like, roommates need to be really, it's like a marriage,
It is. And that's why I wanted to, so I lived by myself for almost 2 years after my last like psychopathic share house experience in Berlin. I was then by myself for 2 years. And then my contract got cancelled by the main tenant just because she was moving to a different country. And so I was like, you know what? I actually, after living alone for 2 years in Berlin during a really emotional period, I wanted to live with a community. I wanted more space.
Yep.
I wanted to live with people because I also didn't want my the way I live to get too rigid, and I wanted to it's a very specific relationship living with someone, and I wanted to share that.
Yep.
And it has been great, but it is like a marriage. It's you really have to communicate about these different things, and it's complex.
Yeah, it is complex.
It is complex.
But it's nice, like, being in a share house, like, coming home and not knowing what's happening, you know what I mean? Like, coming home and, like, someone's cooking a heap of pastas. Do you want some pasta? And you're like, this is lovely.
Exactly.
You know?
And that was happening for a long time. And
so you lived alone for 2 years?
I lived alone for 2 years, by Schönleinstraße.
Okay. Oh, you were by yourself there.
Yeah.
So I've never lived by myself.
Wow, really?
No, I never, because I'm serial monogamist, so I always live with my girlfriend, you know? Yeah. So I don't know. I guess it's really free and really nice, but it's lonely too, right?
Well,
Or not?
I was also kind of serial monogamous at that point still. Like I was trying to have some singleness, but that was not really happening. So when I was living by myself, I had a boyfriend the whole time. Or even when I was a bit single, I was seeing multiple people. Brag. No.
I give you a hard time about that,
Yeah. But it's the truth. So I wasn't really alone, but there were still moments where I felt like when those relationships were breaking down, or when I was having, just like self-doubt crises, living by myself was really hard.
Yep.
And but it was also the kind of point in time I was at in my living in Berlin story. It was in my second year that I moved in by myself. And so it was only like year 2 and year 3 that I was there. And those are really unstable times, I think, when you move to a new city. Your first year is super unstable, but yeah. And, but now I think, I don't know, I would like to, I'm planning to be touring a lot, and I'll be, out a lot. And I think with the comedy community, now that I feel like there's this real community that I have here, and I've really solidified some friendships, I feel like living by myself, it will be okay now.
Yeah.
My relationships aren't like so monogamous, if you like. I don't just have one partner and then a few peripheral friends. I really have like some good friends, and then whatever partner comes up in the future.
You accidentally knocked on wood just then.
Yeah, I did accidentally.
For everyone listening, I just waved her hand and actually banged to the table. I think that was kind of beautiful, man.
Oh, thank you. That was so subconscious. But whatever partner comes into my life, I'm still going to have a really solid support network in Berlin. So I think living by myself is possible, but I do like living with people. I like sharing spaces.
People are nice, man.
People are great.
It's kind of the whole point of being a human is that you get to have other people,
No.
Sharing experiences is what makes it so rich.
I know. Oh.
But you can always just call a friend up.
Exactly. Exactly. So let's see what happens. Now let's get on to some adults only. Share housing is very adult.
Yeah, but you just want to talk about my dick and stuff.
Dave.
I don't know. I've had all my friends that have done this podcast, like, yeah, she, about 5 minutes in, she's like, all right, so get it out.
Show us your dick.
Show us your dick.
Whip it out.
Whip it out.
Did you hear my alarm? It's time. It's dick time.
It's dick time.
Let's measure it. Let's weigh it. I'll get the scales out. You know.
It's because all your comedy, like all your like podcasts and all your branding is really like adults only sex based stuff like that. Like it is like a common theme in your existence.
And it was something that I resisted at first, like in my first year and a half of comedy, year and a half of comedy before I really like felt like I was doing comedy.
Yeah.
the boyfriend that I had then was like, Anna, you don't need to like do so many jokes about sex. Like already your presence is quite sexual. Like you don't need to say it. That's the voice I give him.
Yeah, that's or all men voice or just his.
Yeah. Don't talk about sex, Anna.
And then you're like, man.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll do sex if I want. I'll talk about sex.
Well.
No, that's not the voice I put for myself at all. But yeah, and then within sort of 6 months of breaking up with him and getting quite serious about comedy, I had started Glory Hole Comedy. I'd done adults only comedy specials. And then I was also doing, just by accident, a show called Sexy Voice Comedy, which is something that Dragos set up.
Yeah.
But then I ended up taking over because him doing Sexy Voice Comedy was just so cringy. Like it was hard to get to the funny there. Love you, Dragos.
But she's right.
And boom, I had this. I'd really sort of started this brand of like, okay, and I'd really embraced the fact that a lot of my ideas and thinking go into this sort of crossing over of like wholesome material and then merging that with stuff that's really adults only or X-rated. And me working at a kindergarten as well, it's like there was a lot of
That's right.
which I'm now a nanny, so I'm still looking after kids, but you know there's a nice contrast there.
Juxtaposition,
for
want of a better word.
Exactly. The juxta.
So because you talk about sex a lot, like someone might ask the question, like, do you have a bit of a like sex addiction or
It's a good question.
Because you know, I have addiction too. You know, I wouldn't say it judgmentally.
No, and I don't feel judged.
But I would say, because you talk about sex a lot, right? Let's say if we knew someone who talked about fire trucks just as often, right? you know, all this stuff.
Fire trucks,
fire truck comedy, and you know, like the fire truck podcast. Like, if as often, you'd be like, that guy is obsessed with fire trucks.
Yeah, I think obsession is. Okay, so totally, I agree with you. One would naturally wonder if there was an unhealthy, like compulsive or an unhealthy, very disproportionate focus.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to deny. But honestly, like, I think in my younger years, I definitely had sex a lot, and I was driven by sex a lot, like the act and getting that. And I think that was also a part of why I was such a serial monogamist as well, because that way I would always have sex, right?
Achieving sex, you know what I mean? Like, because when you're young, you know what I mean? Like, especially as a young, like, teenage boy, like, it was such a goal. It was so important.
Yeah.
And
it wasn't so much such an important goal for me. I did broke up. I did grow up with an older brother, so he definitely informed a lot and of my outlook. My parents were also very like sexually liberal, and in that they would talk about stuff with me, and there was a lot of
what do you mean? What would they talk about? Like,
they would explain sex. There was a show in Australia called Sex Life. And do you remember this?
I think so.
It was on at 9 p.m.
I don't think I was allowed to watch it at all.
My parents watched it with us.
What? Okay, yeah.
And so on that show, they talked about sex toys, different sex positions. And my parents had I'm not so sure about my dad, but definitely my mum was very much like, your sexual health is important, and your sex life, being sexual is, having a healthy sex life is important to your health in general.
Yep.
And she was very open about it. And my brother was very curious naturally in younger years, so I got a lot of information quite early. He's 5 years older than me. And then I wasn't so focused on getting sex, but I think I don't look back and think about, you know what? When I was 6 years old, I have a little diary. I have a diary in my bookshelf.
Yep.
And there is an entry about where I fantasized about having sex with a boy in a toilet at a party.
Okay. Well, at 6 years old?
At 6. You should see the handwriting. Like,
dude.
It's
that's well, I don't know. Is that early? seems premature.
I think it's pretty early.
Especially in a bathroom too. It's already like, it's not even like, you know, on a bed of roses or on your wedding night. A 6-year-old might imagine, like getting married and honeymoon, but you're like, no, like bend me over in a cubicle.
Like pushing him into the toilet.
Yeah.
Pushing him into the bathroom.
Go on.
And and I remember the way I wrote the word sex. I wrote it in the sexy handwriting. Like I did like extra curls around the S.
Yeah.
And extra curl on the end of the E and extra curls around the X. And I was like, and then we have sex.
Yeah.
So I was quite like, my mind was there, and I wouldn't say that I obsessed about it, but I feel like it was a healthy part of my awareness of the world. But then, as a high school, in high school, I was extremely promiscuous at parties. Like as soon as I had a drink, yeah. I remember one party I made out with 5 different people.
Yep.
And like there was also like handsies going on in between, like within those,
Yep.
I was a total, I was a big.
I'm loving watching you choose this word. By the way, I was
such a big liberated young teenager. Yeah. I really, and I was okay with it, but it really, it caused a lot of discomfort in other people. And at one point, if anyone listens to the podcast, they might already know, and I've recently written a joke about it. We were friends with this boys' school, and they had a website up for the parties that they threw. And on that website with the parties and the photos that they'd share, there was a whole page written about me being a slutty bitch.
Oh, no.
Yes. So I was cyberbullied back in 2002.
Oh, before it was cool.
Before there was social media.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made it. They learned JavaScript to bully me.
That's terrible, man.
It was horrible, and my friends kept it from me. They knew about it.
Yeah.
And it had all escalated because I had this boyfriend when I was 16, and I broke up with him because I don't know, whatever. And then I think I tried to like get it on with his best friend. Classic Anna move.
Yeah, sure.
Back then.
Yeah.
And the best friend was like, yeah, we'll kiss for a bit, but no, this can't happen. And I was like, cool, Harry, no worries. I remember his name.
Yeah.
And then we were organizing this party. We're organizing this party in this church community center, and it was going to be basically illegal. We were selling tickets. We were going to provide alcohol. We were all 16 years old.
Yeah.
And I was a bit worried because the person who was renting the space was my friend's mum, and she was not wealthy like some of the other girls in this boys' school. She was not wealthy at all. Yeah. And I was a bit worried. I was like, what could be the consequences here? And also for our futures in terms of like going to university, and could we get in trouble? And so I made an anonymous call to the police to be like, what would happen if there was a party, and if and in a place like this, what would the fines be? And the police officer said that the person who hired the space would get fined $10,000.
Right.
And this was back in 2002, and I was like, And I was like, what about like anyone under the age of 16? And he was like, well, that would be, they would have a juvenile criminal record.
Ooh, yeah.
And I was like, well, I want to study law, so this doesn't work for me. So I basically called off. I was like, guys, I can't support this. I want to call it off. I want to refund the tickets.
Okay.
And then because I called off the party,
yeah, you suck.
I suck.
Yeah.
And so then I'm a slutty bitch. And it was this whole page of different people commenting about how much of a bitch I was and how much of a slut I was.
Commenting, like, what was this on? Like MySpace or something, or
no,
what?
It was like they'd made their own website.
What?
Yeah,
That
and
is
it was
crazy.
And it was so that they could publish photos from parties and like show when the next party was going to be, and
so it
share
had
these
its own
memories.
URL.
Yeah.
Oh God. That's
Yeah.
in a way flattering.
I know, right? I look back now and I'm like, I would pay someone to make that for me now.
You had your own fan page in like 20 years ago, man. I mean, they think they're like making fun of you, but really someone sat up all night making a website.
All press is good press.
Yeah, dude. No such
Right.
thing as bad publicity.
Yeah.
Wow. So was that hard at the time?
Oh,
I mean,
man,
like,
that was
crazy hard, right?
That was crazy hard. It came up like we were sitting in the circle on the like basketball courts, and someone mentioned something about the comments about me, and I was like, what? And this page had been up for like, a month or something.
Yeah.
And this friend slipped, and I went into the computer lab and I found it, and I was just bawling.
Whoa.
And my teacher came in and she's like, "What is this?" And I'm like, pointing at the screen.
Yeah.
And she read it, and she was so angry, and she immediately called the principal of the boys' school, because this webpage talked about the boys' school.
Okay. Yeah. They probably
And-
incriminated themselves.
Yeah.
Hey? Yeah.
And so she called the principal. So I basically like ruined everything for everybody.
You canceled the party, and then you knocked. You went straight to the teacher as soon as you found out.
But I didn't. She came in and found me crying, and then she went off and did
But
her
how
own
loud
action.
were you crying? Could you have done a better job?
Oh, I couldn't.
Or were you like,
That's definitely how I cry. And so she spoke to the principal, and the principal made the boys take the page down, and if they didn't, then they would have gotten into more trouble.
Yep.
And I think they did resist, and I think then like the teachers took it down, like somehow it got taken down.
Right.
Yeah. So my promiscuities haven't always been my drive for sex.
Yeah.
Hasn't always been appreciate, like, I guess, but I didn't see myself as like sex obsessed. I was like, as much as any of the boys, I was just like going around kissing people at parties, getting fingered, giving hand jobs, just working on my skills.
When you were a young teenage girl, was it ever funny? I think it would be funny to see boys try and find the hole. Because I was a little off, as a teenager. I was like, oh, when I found it, I was like, that's hidden. It's so obvious to me now.
Obviously.
But it's like, once you know, but
Right.
like until then, I just thought it'd be a bit more like on the front, you know what I mean? Like I didn't
bit
think it'd be
more
so like
in between the legs.
Yeah.
But like behind the curtains.
Yeah, I was impressed. I remember thinking like, that is a great spot to put it, actually.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
But I think girls that age also don't really know it.
Yeah.
Like I was using tampons, I think, by the age of 17 or 18. I did start using, I got my period when I was 14. So I was using tampons, but even then that was really like, I was using the applicators, and I really didn't know my holes that well.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of and in terms of my clitoris, like I didn't know anything about that.
Well, yeah. Being a teenager in regards to the clitoris, I remember that I only ever won a academic award in one subject in my whole time in high school, right? And it was for health, right? And when they read my name at the assembly, and the health academic award, David Adams, and everyone laughed, and I laughed too. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I didn't even think that was an academic subject. And then I went up and took my award, and the health teacher, she gave me a wink, and I'm like, what? Why have I won this? I was trying to figure it out for ages, and it was literally years later. I was just having a little flashback about being a little class clown idiot in high school. You just remember certain things from high school. And I remember being in that health class, and that teacher saying, so now a diagram of the female anatomy, and she pointed at the clitoris, and she says, now what is the clitoris for? And I didn't know, but I put my hand up and I said, for decoration? As a joke, just threw a line out there, right? Yeah. And she was like, well, yes, most men would say that, right? And she thought I'd said something very clever. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
She gave me credit for that,
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So she thought you were being sarcastic.
Yeah. So
men
she's
ignore
like,
this.
he knows exactly what it's for.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. You got given way too much credit.
Yeah, I got a certificate for that joke. It was an award-winning joke.
God damn. I want a certificate.
But yeah, girls, I don't know. How did you find it? I guess I guess you just.
I
well,
guess.
wouldn't your parents have told you about it if they were so?
Yeah, you'd think maybe I didn't really some kids.
Or do they want you to find it on your own, figuring out Santa Claus?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think they weren't encouraging me to find pleasure in sex, but they were like as in they were just like, sex is this and there's this and this is natural, but they weren't like, here's your clit, figure it out, you know?
Yeah. Go for gold, son.
Yeah, exactly. No. And I think I discovered I really just attempted masturbation quite late compared to some kids. Mm-hmm. There was a kid at my kindergarten who would rub a couple out every nap time.
Yeah, yeah.
Like really, like she would have crazy orgasms. I would watch this 5-year-old like squirm and wreathe and shake, and she would sometimes make eye contact and be like, "This is not."
She didn't know that it was
okay.
like so rude. Yeah.
Well, rude, yeah.
Like rude, like old school rude. Like, oh, that's rude.
Oh, that's rude.
Yeah, she's touching her rude bits. You know, yeah. Not rude like, impolite or whatever.
Rude, that's such a funny word.
Remember people say rude like that?
No, I haven't heard that for ages,
No,
but I think
yeah.
I've just been here too long.
Yeah.
But like private. Yeah, well, the teachers were surprisingly. My kindergarten was very much in the East Berlin, very old school disciplinary vibe. But they wouldn't. These teachers weren't shaming kids who were masturbating in nap time.
Right.
Which was interesting, which I respected a lot. It was like cool, but sometimes it would be like, hey, like. What's a different name that's not her name? Like, hey Emma, like, everything okay? As she's like, got her butt up and her hand between her, like,
shit,
lying sort of, like face down, on the sleeping mat with her crutch, popping up and her hand between and rubbing herself. And so sometimes they would be like, hey Emma, and she'd be like, oh. But then, like, often she would just go through the whole thing, and she was very efficient. Like, she would orgasm real quick.
Yep.
It was impressive.
That's a crazy, man.
And sometimes, like, sometimes I think the most was like 3 times in one nap session.
She wasn't tired.
She wasn't tired. Like, she'd finish and she'd be
a
like,
nap after nap session.
Yeah, she'd have right.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and I was actually like watching this child. I was quite jealous. It was like, God damn it! I wish I figured out my like fun spot that early when I was 5 years old.
5 years old.
5 years old.
I can't remember how old I was, I don't know. I think just like teenage boy, I was just rubbing it and then it went off or something like that.
Rubbing it and went off.
Yeah. Actually, I remember.
Do you remember? Yeah.
What I do remember is being very young, and I couldn't even tell you what age. But like, just being in the, in the toilet or something. So I must have been, it's got to be around the 5 or 6 years. Crazy young,
Yeah, that's young.
And I remember noticing,
because boys, it usually is a little bit later. Because
yeah, I think so. I don't know. I can't remember. I can't remember the age. Look, young, way young.
Way young.
And I remember thinking, hey, my penis looks bigger. It just got big and kind of hard. Do you know what I mean? It was I remember my first erection,
Oh,
but I remember
so
it being
cute.
at such a young age that I was like, I didn't know it was something, like kind of private or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I you know where I'm going, right?
Yes.
Like, I must be really young here because I remember like going out to like my mother and going, Mum, look at my penis. It just went all hard and long, and Mum's like, David, and then I figured it out. Then I'm like, oh, that's a rude thing.
That's a rude thing. Rude.
Yeah,
That's so funny. Look at this, Mom.
Yeah, I was just like a child. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, my penis looks different.
Yeah.
I just thought that was weird, or something you'd tell your parents about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if your elbow started swelling or something like
Yeah,
that.
totally.
You'd
It's like,
get
this is my
Mum.
body, and
Yeah.
like you guys take care of it. So check this out.
Yeah, but she shamed me. No, I'm kidding.
But
totally.
yeah, but
totally
she was like, I don't
joking.
want to see that.
No. It was like I sort of learnt as a tiny boy. I was just like, okay, so that's like it's been my first sort of introduction to like your private parts are private.
Totally. I remember actually, there's 2 things there. Working at the kindergarten, I discovered that even babies get erections.
Is that true?
That's true.
Okay, so that makes more sense. That
Yep.
makes more sense to me. What do you mean babies? Like,
I'm talking like 1-year-olds,
and
they're in nappies, and
they go to little
they're
erections in
little
their nappies?
erections. Yeah.
You're blowing my mind today, man. I did not know that at all.
Yeah, it's really uncomfortable. It's like you're changing a diaper, and this penis is hard. This tiny little penis is hard, and you're like, okay. wipey. Don't like, don't touch it. Just change the diaper.
I don't know.
Yeah, and that's often when they'll pee on you.
Oh, when it's hard?
Yeah, like otherwise it'll like go up a little bit, but if they like if they're lying down and they pee like right up at
it's more directional.
Yeah, it's
So
more.
they probably
up.
haven't developed that part yet because when you don't know, but when you have an erection, you know, what I mean, it cuts off the pee stream. You know, like a little fork or whatever.
Yeah.
But maybe babies don't have that developed as much or something.
Or it's like when they're like semi.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't go like full boner, you know, but like, yeah, they have these little erections.
Wait, so have you been pissed at least?
No, I haven't. I
Okay.
missed out on that.
Okay,
That
okay.
maybe will come later in life.
Yeah.
I look forward to the moment.
I haven't been pissed on by a baby.
Yeah, no. But I did see some interesting things at the Kita for sure. Not like that, but also, other things. But I wanted to talk about my first sort of my moment of realizing that my vagina was a bit like not rude. It was a bit rude.
yeah.
Funny term for it. A bit rude. Was when I learned about periods. I think I was very young, and I think I'd cut myself somehow, and I was like, mom, and I like got on the bed, lay back, and like spread and like showed her inside my vulva, like spreading and like here, and there was like this little speck of blood. I was like, check this out, it's bleeding. Is this my period? And she's like, no, you just cut yourself on your labia. And I was like, all right, I'm still a girl then. Okay.
Oh God.
But yeah, I didn't really try to masturbate until I was I think like 14, and even that was like not that successful. Like I wasn't really properly masturbating. Yeah, the memory isn't very solid, I've got to say.
Exactly. It's a blurry time, actually.
It's very blurry.
Coming into puberty, like the beginning of puberty, really. You know?
Yeah, because like when I was then having sexual stuff with boys from the age of 14 through to when I got my first like proper boyfriend when I was 18, I was not able to direct them to what they should be doing.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
No.
I was just like, go for it. Woo! Like,
Yeah.
I'm as ignorant as you are. And in fact, I'm trusting, like, I usually paired up with guys that were older than me, I think in the hope that they would be able to be, like, more successful than I was.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, because I think when I lost my virginity, it's 17 or something like that. I was 16,
I was 17.
Yes, about that, I'd say. Yeah. And I think she was 16. But at that age, that seems like a really like
it's a big
huge
difference.
age gap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So because she was 16, I think she sort of thought like, oh, he's 17, he'll know what he's doing. Do you know what I mean?
How ignorant we were.
Yeah, right. It's like he's a 17-year-old. You know? He's almost 18. He'll be driving.
He's had like 4 more of me than I've had at him.
Yeah, I think she did think I was way more. So she must have been very disappointed.
But she wouldn't have known what she was missing out on. That's the other thing. When you're that young, you look back and you're like, oh man, like they had no idea. But it's like you didn't know yourself. Like you weren't. I was never disappointed by my sexual experiences. It was just like I didn't feel necessarily that like I didn't feel some huge amount of shame or like I can't like no one back then was interested in a woman orgasm. Like there wasn't a conversation about a woman's got to come.
Yeah, it wasn't nearly as fashionable as it is now.
Oh, equal rights.
That is true. The female orgasm was much more mysterious back in the day.
Yeah, like I didn't know what I was supposed to be striving for at all.
Yeah.
At all, and I don't think I really orgasmed until like I did enjoy sex. Like I always enjoyed sex. I enjoyed there was sensations that I was enjoying, but actually climaxing. I think it wasn't like I don't know when I'd like to remember my first orgasm.
Okay, interesting.
But I don't really recall it.
So you think like late teens though? You're saying?
Oh, I actually think early 20s.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because I've heard of that, man.
Yeah,
I have.
Yeah,
I have heard of that.
Yeah.
I was dating a girl once who had never had an orgasm, and she couldn't.
Yeah.
She just couldn't, and she's like she tried absolutely everything, and there is just a small percentage.
There's a small percentage, yeah.
I find that so sad, to be honest.
It's tough, man. Like I would, if that person was a friend of mine, I'd be like, can we just blindfold you and I go to town and see what I can do for you?
Yeah, and they'll, but they're like, yeah, go.
Maybe
go
like
for
drug
it.
you up.
Yeah,
no, I'm joking.
Yeah, something though. Yeah,
but like
try it.
Like bringing down those inhibitions because it's often
you think
cases
mental,
psychological. Yeah,
you're probably right, actually,
for sure. And yeah, and there's also this thing connected with orgasms. I remember speaking to a cousin when I was maybe 18, and I was like, "Have you ever orgasmed?" And she was like, "Well, I felt like I needed to pee." And I think like that was me about to orgasm, but I haven't actually let myself into that feeling because I'm scared I'm going to pee the bed. And so for a long
Interesting.
time, I thought that orgasm was feeling like you needed to pee
Right.
or getting to that point.
Yeah.
I really want to remember my first orgasm.
I think someday you will. You know, you'll be having an orgasm, and you'll have this flashback like, oh, I remember.
It was here. Or maybe it was just like, because you can have light orgasms and you can have like hardcore orgasms, right?
Okay. Yeah. See. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I probably had some light ones sprinkled across my 20s. Like, they were light, but they and then started the deeper ones, you know. But I really feel like I'm in my orgasm prime right now.
Yeah. You probably are.
Like just the last couple of years, like I'd say the last actually Berlin has been, and my marriage was good too. So I'd say like the last 6 years have been. Yeah.
Because you're probably, you know, as far as sexual peaks go, you're on the way to it, aren't you? Because you're young 30s, mid 30s sort of thing.
Yeah, 34.
Okay, yeah. So when is the peak? It's like for ladies, it's really late, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
it's quite late. It's like it's 30s, early 30s, I think.
I think it's late 30s. You could be right. You might
be
know.
right.
Like
I don't know.
You know, because, you know, women in their 40s are, you know, really sexually active, whereas men are less sexually active than they are in, like, you know, their 20s.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
So, literally, you being 34, me being 32, you are, like, going on the way up of your sexual peak, and I'm on my way down. I am. I feel it, too.
You feel it?
Just a little bit. Like, no, I'm still, like, you know, sexually active and I love sex, but I definitely loved it more when I was 24. I definitely loved sex more when I was 24.
Yeah.
You know, it was a much bigger focus in my life, you know.
That's interesting because for me, like, I definitely enjoy sex way more now, but I think my life was like I was running after sex a lot more in my 20s and not really aware of what was all wrapped up in that for me. I think this obsession with sex in my 20s, for example, was more me confusing or conflating sex and intimacy and being desired and being valuable.
Yep.
Whereas I think I want actually going back to this point of like the sex obsession. I think sex is this core thing in society and in history, and it's like it's kind of like the root of
Yeah, go on.
I was gonna say of female oppression, right?
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Did not think you were going to go there.
I
thought you were laughing because you said the word root. For all the Australians, that means boning.
Boning.
Oh, is that Australian as well?
Boning, that's American. That's totally American, right?
Of course it is. Yeah.
Boning.
So say that again.
her.
Sorry, I wasn't ready to hear
Go
that.
political.
No. I just thought you were. Say that again.
Yeah, so I think sex is the kind of root source of and like differences in sex, and sex is this like hugely politicized thing.
Sure.
And you know, religion and politics, like so many laws and so much discrimination is based on sex. So it's like how you identify gender wise. You know, the body parts that you have, then who you're attracted to, like all of this stuff is so. And it's hilarious because it's like we create, like human society has created so many systems for discrimination based on who you want to fuck.
Yeah.
And so sex is this, sex is so funny, right? Like someone's penis entering a hole.
Oh,
or
dude,
like,
it's hilarious.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
And also like coming into comedy and this you know, naturally there are far fewer women in comedy because of the way society has been structured, and so there have been fewer women that have had the means to be able to pursue a creative industry, right? Because of maternity leave laws and because of expectations of staying at home and having kids and all of these things, and so. And the stigma around being a single female and all of that stuff. And so naturally there are fewer women in comedy. And there's so much stigma still around like a highly sexually active woman, like less and less, but it's still, you know, it's something that I've grown up with. So sex for me is this, it's so political.
Yeah.
and it's so interesting and it's so funny. And I'm very comfortable, you know, talking about, you know, I think the more we talk about it, the less taboo it becomes, the less shame there is.
For you, it sounds like it's an expression of freedom almost. You know what I mean? Like a good way to be liberated.